Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your week to be here with us today. Very excited to share some updates as to what's been going on at ULinks and our Woodlands and Waterways EcoWatch program. The agenda we have for you today, we'll start off with just a round of introductions. We can start off with our staff, and then we'd like to open it up to you folks, just a quick round there. We'll go into detail about ULinks and our WWEW program from a high level, and then we'll just dive right into the program updates, covering what we see on screen here. We'll also talk a little bit about financial sustainability, as well as evolution of the program going forward. So maybe I'll invite staff here quick just to introduce themselves, and then we can go through the participants in this meeting. Try to keep it brief, just what organization you're here from, and one of the three, either why you're here today, your connection to the WWEW program, and or what you're hoping to learn or share through tonight's meeting. So start off with staff. Jack?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jack Scott. I'm the Water Quality Coordinator at ULinks. I've been on since last May or so. Really happy to be here with y'all today.
Great, thank you. Nick?
My name is Nick. Been doing the aquatic plant survey and then report writing now that Jason's also been working on.
Yep. I don't know if you're able to, Jason. Do you want to just unmute and introduce yourself quick? Maybe a network connection issue. No problem. Stephanie?
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Field. I'm the admin and logistics coordinator at ULinks, and I've been on since the end of June.
Excellent. Jim?
Jim Prince. I'm the co-chair of ULinks, and I'm the chair of Woodlands and Waterways EcoWatch. But I'm also the vice president and stewardship director for the KLCOA, and I help with programming and coordinating ULinks and WWEW.
Excellent. And then we do have a guest speaker here with us from Trent University, Finn.
Hey there, I'm Finn. I'm year 3 at Trent University during my undergrad, and I spent the summer looking at microplastics in Lake Halliburton.
Okay, excellent. So we'll just cycle through the participants here. Try to keep it brief, but don't omit, the crucial details. Maybe we can start off with Jeff Woods.
Hi, Jeff Woods. I'm the lake steward for Boshkung Lake, and this is our second year of participating in the program for water testing. And super appreciate what you guys are doing and the results that we're getting. So thank you.
Thank you. Paul Hewitt.
Yeah, hi everyone. Paul Hewitt. I'm a director on the Horseshoe Lake Property Owners Association. I'm also part of the Lake Steward Committee, and have worked with Jack for the last couple of years doing water testing in our lake. And I'm always trying to learn as much as I can about the conditions of our lake and the type of testing going on, and just to be ahead of the game as much as possible. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Carter. I'm on the WWEW Advisory Committee since the beginning, and I've been a board member on ULinks for the past 7 years. I'm the mayor of Minden Hills, and I'm just here to hear nothing but good news.
Excellent. Thanks, Bob. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Willens. I'm a professor at Trent University. I've been involved with ULinks since it began, and also the Woodlands and Waterways program, and I've been involved in a number of the individual lake monitoring programs, as well as trying to help out in this coordinated one across many lakes. And one other thing I'd add is I was involved in the Love Your Lake assessments up in Halliburton for the 4 years that went on. So it kind of overlays with this in a nice way.
Anton? Okay. Brian Drake?
Yep. 1 second. So I can get my video on. Yeah, Brian Drake. I'm with the Horseshoe Lake Cottage Owners Association. I'm only going to be able to stay with you for about a half an hour because we've got our own Lake Association meeting here tonight, a little bit later tonight. But yeah, we've been working with ULinks for the past 2 years. Jack has been a great resource for us. So appreciate all that you guys do.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, Frank, it's Anton.
There we are.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get myself online. I'm Anton Davies. I'm the lake steward at Moore Lake Property Owners Association, which is Moore Lake, East Moore, and a good chunk of the Gull River downstream. We've been involved with ULinks now for 2 years, and we're learning lots of stuff. We're very excited and hope to get involved with the Benthic program next year as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Dale Leadbeater.
Hi, I'm the Director of Natural Heritage for the Harcourt Park Incorporated, and we've been involved with this program for 2 years, very excited about it, and I'm using it to integrate with our other programs, promoting shoreline health. So the results of this program is key to that, and to hopefully educate Dysart Council as they lose their minds thinking that they can increase development on shorelines. So this is a really important program for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We have 2 Daves here. We start with Dave Ray.
Sure, Frank. I'm the lake steward for Gull Lake, a retired IT executive, and I'm very happy to be on this program and understand what's happening.
Thank you. And then it doesn't show a last name, but Dave.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, it's Dave Taylor, lake steward at Glamour Lake in Highlands East. Anyways, I've been part of the program working with ULinks for a few years now. So anyways, keep up the good work.
Great. Thank you. Jessica Livingstone.
Hi, I'm Jess Livingstone, a recent graduate from Trent University, and I'm currently working with the Land Between charity up in Halliburton. So working with a lot of property owners and lake associations up there. So very interested to see kind of the updates of the program and hopefully see what's coming next down the line.
Excellent. Patty?
Hi. Sorry. Oh, I'm all blurry. I am with Lipsey Lake. I'm the lake steward, and I guess this is our second year with the WWEW program, and we're learning lots about our lake. Really excited to do that. Also struggling with a few shoreline issues recently. Frank, I might need to talk to you about that after. But yeah, excited to be here and really looking forward to where we go with this.
Okay, absolutely. Rob?
There we are. I'm Robert Norris with the Dragon's Roost Lakes Property Owners Association. We've worked with ULinks since before I came on the scene about 4 years ago. We've done water quality monitoring. We're going to start this year with Frank doing benthic monitoring. And we've also worked with Frank hosting or working with 10 students creating a GIS map for the drag area. I've got an interest, I guess, in Phragmites because we have found one patch on the lake, and there's probably more. So,
okay, thank you. Sean?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sean Watmore. I'm also a prof at Trent University. Been involved with ULinks and WWEW for a long time, but not as long as Tom Willins.
And then, is there anyone that was missed? Steve.
Sorry for being late. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Dave Dice. I'm with the Musquaby Area Community Association. 4 Lakes. We've been working with ULinks on the benthic invertebrates we've just finished our 5-year, and we've been doing the water sampling. I want to be just sort of updated on some of the things that are happening and the status of the various programs.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. So let's just dive into today's meeting. So just a quick high-level overview here about who we are. The one counterpart that is not with us this evening, our director, Andrew Gordon. Typically, he's the one that introduces ULinks. Unfortunately, he's on the road today and wasn't able to make it here with us today. Sends regrets, but is an excellent component of ULinks and really contributes towards the operations in the form of how successful things have been. A bit about us. We are one of the many auspices of the Haliburton County Community Cooperative. We're a small not-for-profit organization that's been contributing towards Haliburton County under the name ULinks since 1999, but previously segueing from Trent University's bioregionalism course, which was led by Tom Willans and John Wadland from 1989 to 99. Our role is a research broker for community organizations to partner them with post-secondary institution students to solve community relevant research goals. We operate within the cultural, social, economic, and environmental sectors, though these days about 85% of the work we do is in the environmental sector. And we've seen over 3,000 students participate in over 600 research projects over this time. The one thing to distinctify is the research at the community-based research level starts from the bottom up. So it starts with organizations coming with problems that they're looking for support on versus from the academic level looking to fill gaps in literature or answer intellectual questions in that regard. Some examples of past projects that are really keystone to what we're meeting here today. There was some shoreline evaluation work on the Kinesis Lakes in 2010, 2011, which actually led to the genesis of the Watersheds Canada offered Love Your Lake program. And that was executed here locally by the Coalition of Haliburton County Property Owners Associations. Quite a substantial amount of lakes have had reports issued to them through that program. So that is a massive undertaking and a massive resource for the county that all started through a CBR project. We've also engaged, of course, in benthic biomonitoring. It all started on Couchog Lake, which led to the development of the WWEW program because it really demonstrated the community's ability to be able to support scientifically rigorous studies within, community capacities. Another initiative is the Microplastics in Haliburton County Lakes project, which we have Finn here today to talk a bit about that. And then our other projects have also tackled issues practically, such as light pollution on cottage lakes, wetland protection, illegal dumping through innovative tools like online reporting and hotspot signage. And more recently, we've explored advancing approaches like using machine learning to identify critical tributaries actually within Harcourt Park's property. And it really shows how community-based research can bridge between local needs and cutting-edge solutions through student involvement. Haliburton County is fairly unique when it comes to aquatic monitoring. We have one of the largest densities of lakes in Ontario, but it's very limited in terms of baseline data to understand how these systems are changing over time. On top of that, our lakes are especially vulnerable to the cumulative impacts of shoreline development and climate change. And because many of the lakes found up here are headwater systems, they do require a higher level of sensitivity because, of course, what's happening up here will have downstream impacts across entire watersheds. So by collecting strong local data, this allows us to answer these local questions, but it also has more broader applications for policy, planning, and stewardship. So while simultaneously involving communities directly in this program, it's not just practical, it's looked at by us as a strategic tool that's building awareness and capacity. And it's important to recognize that while our lake associations and volunteers are deeply committed, there is a noted limited stewardship capacity in the region. We don't have a watershed council currently, nor a conservation authority, and that's why this ongoing monitoring and partnership support is as critical as they are. I typically show this slide with just the water quality monitoring and terrestrial monitoring, which is comprised of benthic biomonitoring, so using macroinvertebrates as biological indicators, and the Testing the Waters program, sourcing physical and chemical indicators for lake health. We're also doing terrestrial monitoring across several properties in Haliburton County, looking at long-term forest changes in response to disease, pests, effects of climate change. But as of recently, we've also been getting involved in special projects through grant opportunities. And most recently, that's been focused on invasive Phragmites and aquatic plant inventories. And so we have our staff here to talk a bit about that in more detail today. One of the key reasons that this WU program has been as successful as it's been is because it's community driven. So that local buy-in ensures long-term commitments, and it also makes the program more resilient over time. We've done this by building in multiple streams of activity. So we have our core monitoring, but we're also, as mentioned, getting involved in special grant-funded projects that are keeping the program dynamic and adaptable, and it allows us to continue to evolve to serve the needs of Haliburton County over time. These partnerships are also central to this sustainability. So we're collaborating closely with post-secondary institutions. We have many contacts on this call today that represent that relationship. And it doesn't only bring in student researchers, but it also keeps the work tied to modern science. And of course, we're also benefiting from the resources that are available in university labs that, quite frankly, ULinks just doesn't have the space to house. I don't know if anyone's had the chance to see our worldwide headquarters on Bobcaygeon Road, but it's a small but mighty presence. Of course, we also benefit from stable support from Haliburton County, which is providing the financial backbone for the program, for the Testing the Waters program, rather. It covers about 50% of the costs incurred in that program. And just focusing back on the strong academic integration that we're pulling and the emphasis on knowledge sharing, it really ensures that the data is flowing back to the community and doesn't just sit on a shelf somewhere as a dusty report being unused. The model that we've developed here, it doesn't just need to work within Haliburton County. It can be scaled and replicated elsewhere, meaning that areas that have similar challenges with water quality monitoring or environmental stewardship can execute exactly what we're doing here. This diagram on screen is just a representation of how our citizen science model works in practice. So with the WU program, it all begins with lake associations that choose to participate in our programs, and then they provide members that step forward as volunteers to help us carry out the work directly within their lakes. From there, we provide training on our protocols and procedures, and we make sure that volunteers are confident and consistent in their approach. We're also supplying the necessary field equipment through our equipment library and supporting these volunteers until they're ready for greater independence in sampling. We've actually had a substantial amount of lake associations that are at the capacity to be able to sample independently, and that really does come full circle in terms of what the aspirations of this program were in the beginning, to be able to provide knowledge capital for people to collect data in the absence of other resources. And as this data gets collected, sometimes alongside our team, sometimes independently, we then process and analyze the results of those samplings. In result of that, each lake association will then receive a tailored report customized for their lake specifically. And it doesn't only just help them understand local conditions, but it also feeds into broader regional monitoring efforts that can be used at a watershed or provincial level. This map on screen here shows all of the lakes that are currently participating in our water quality monitoring program. The green pins represent lakes that are involved in our benthic biomonitoring. The yellow pins show ones that are participating in the Testing the Waters program exclusively. And then the red pins represent lakes that are engaged in both. I will note that this version of the map is due for a little bit of an update because both Koshlong and Bob Lakes are now participating within both programs, so really they should be marked in red. But what this map is really highlighting is the spatial coverage that we've been able to accomplish across Haliburton County when it comes to water quality monitoring. So it's not just showing the individual lake results, but the broader data set that we're building that helps us understand long-term trends and regional patterns within Halliburton. So the next few slides here, I'll be focusing more on the benthic biomonitoring program, and then I'll hand it over to Jack to cover the testing the waters. These two maps here, I like to include these because it really helps show the story of benthic biomonitoring within Halliburton County. So the left map is from 2019, and you can see a strong presence of benthic sites in the Muskoka and Kawartha regions where they have additional support from either a conservation authority or watershed council. And then we see the outlined region of Halliburton County and very underrepresented. We fast forward to today, and on the right, you can see the progress that we've made through the WWEW program. We now have 95 benthic sites established across 28 lakes in the county, and we are extremely proud of that progress. This represents a major step in filling this data gap. It gives us the ability to track aquatic health here in Halliburton locally in a way that's consistent with both regional and provincial standards. So just quickly, why are we focusing on benthics? Benthic macroinvertebrates that we call benthics, they're small aquatic organisms that live in sediments at the bottom of lakes and streams. And because of this, they're living in direct contact with those sediments, often staying in one localized area for long periods of time. And that really gives us a reliable picture of what's happening in the aquatic environment over time. So certain groups are highly sensitive towards pollution. Have some outlined here. That includes mayflies, damselflies, dragonflies, and caddisflies. And their community compositions can get impacted from things like nutrient loading, shoreline disturbances, organic pollutions, those types of variables. And so we can often detect in the benthic community changes before we may see it in water chemistry itself. So it's a reliable indicator species in the sense of that, and why other programs across Ontario and beyond are relying on them as a biological measure of aquatic health. It's not a new concept. It's been used across Canada since the early 2000s, and it's part of established national biomonitoring programs like the Canadian Aquatic Biomonitoring Network, the Ontario Benthic Biomonitoring Network, which we utilize a modified version for our purposes. But it's not the only indicator out there. That said, they do strike a sweet spot for monitoring, given they don't move around much. They have multi-year life cycles, and it gives us insight into longer-term changes rather than just one snapshot in time. On top of all of that, they show huge amounts of taxonomic and ecological diversity. They're found in nearly every water body and can be sampled in a low-tech and cost-effective way. So you don't need to have in-depth field equipment to be able to collect data on that. And so all of these factors together make benthics one of the more reliable and practical biological indicators that we're using in Halliburton County through these programs. This chart here just emphasizes the growth of the program that we've seen. On the first column on the left, we'll see some cells that are grayed out. That represents a lake that has now completed its 5th year of sampling, and our intention is to revisit that lake every 2 to 3 years. We have several lakes that are due for their 5th year this year, and it's really excellent to be able to see that involvement. The reason that we have it sort of staggered out is that it allows us to be able to maintain the bandwidth to be able to sample versus having, the Testing the Waters program running in tandem and then, 95 sites to also sample within the fall. Quite frankly, I wish that we were able to do that, but labor constraints really become an issue in that regard. But this slide here really shows the power of that long-term data collection. We're able to build multi-year baselines and then benchmark lakes against each other to see meaningful patterns start to emerge. So this table here highlights an EOT comparison, which is just mayflies, damselflies, dragonflies, and caddisflies of lakes in their 4th or 5th year of sampling. The sensitivity of these species gives us strong measures of aquatic health. It is worth pointing out that in Halliburton County, the typical range we see starts around 4%. So even lakes that are on the lower end of this table, they're not necessarily in poor condition. It's just showing a natural variation within the county's range. And what this is telling us is not just how individual lakes are doing, but how they compare to each other, as I mentioned, and how we can track changes over time with some confidence. And then for 2025, we do have some lakes that are set to be sampled through community-based research projects. We have one course that we partner with that brings nearly 50 students up to Haliburton County. Some of you would have worked with them in the past or will be working with them this fall. And then we're also looking to match independent community-based research projects to be able to, provide a student an academic opportunity as well as a community partner this information. So from here, I'll hand it over to Jack to just take it away on the testing the waters program.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jack Scott, Water Quality Coordinator. I'll give you a little overview of our Testing the Waters program and its current state. All right, yeah, so currently we're sitting at 61 sites in partnership with 25 lake associations accompanying 39 lakes. The protocols we're using are sort of standardized as well as being regional specific. So keeping in mind that we are up on the Canadian Shield, maybe a bit different than the protocols they'd use south of here, where you get off the shield a bit. And then we're providing reports to everybody that gives you some idea of the condition of your lake as well as some ideas of what you could do if you wanted to improve the condition. And then we're currently working as well to expand our capacity and make it so that we can look at those long-term trends and get some really valuable information over time. So this is a little summation of what we've been able to accomplish so far. So, over 7,000 physical water quality measurements, whether it be dissolved oxygen, temperature, or Secchi depth. We've taken over 3,000 water chemistry samples for nitrogen and phosphorus, your major nutrients in the lake. Volunteers, such as many of you who are on this call right now, have put in a combined 1,400 hours, which I cannot overstate my appreciation for that. Frank mentioned earlier that we're sort of limited on a physical constraint, and so we really wouldn't be able to do what we do without your support. So sincerely, thank you. We've also trained volunteers for over 200 hours, and this is important because one of our long-term goals is to eventually serve as an equipment library and sort of a data repository. Where we will transition from collecting the data ourselves and we'll instill that confidence in lake stewards to be able to collect the data using the equipment that we can provide and then send it back to us and we can sort of do the analysis and pass it back to you. So this is a nice little overview of the parameters that we engage with, and it compares it to a few other organizations who also do environmental monitoring. One unique thing about our program is that we do 3 samplings a year. Bigger organizations such as those like the MECP or the MND, MNRF have less frequent samplings, and that's just due to the size of area that they encompass. But we're sampling 3 times a year. We do spring, fall, and winter, and the winter one's really unique. We're the only agency who will do that in the region. And this is nice too because it gives us that sort of trifecta of information in all times of the year, as well as it has nice informational implications for the effect of drawdown over lakes over the winter. I'm sure you guys have noticed if you look out on the lakes, you're missing a bit of water right now, and that's for a number of reasons. But with winter testing below the ice, we can hopefully determine the effects of that. One other thing I want to mention here is that this is not by any means a static list of parameters. It's constantly undergoing revisions to be as useful as possible. Yeah. So on to some of the reports we've made so far. So in 2022 and 2023, in the pilot phase of the program, we issued 10 reports each year to the 10 lake associations who were engaged with us at the time. And then in 2024, which was our expansion year, we expanded up to 25 lake associations, and we provided each of those associations a report as well, and we will continue to do so in the following years. We're just about to get fall sampling underway, and at the conclusion of that, we're going to start working on those reports, and we'll have those out to you as soon as we can. So I want to talk a little bit more about why sort of collecting data over time is important as opposed to just, get in once and then that's it. So you can see here, if you look at the blue line, that encompasses from 2010 to 2016. If you were to just look at that, you may get the impression that phosphorus levels, which is what this graph shows, were on the rise in Little Kinesis Lake. However, when we step back and we look at that longer trend from 02 to 24, we can see that actually over time they've remained relatively stable and may have even experienced a slight decline. So we can see that the more data you collect, the more accurate representation of that data we see. So talking about the future of the program, we're gonna introduce some shipping costs reimbursement, and Frank's gonna talk a little bit about that later on. But one thing I want to touch on here as well is after the 5th year of testing for many lakes, we're gonna step back our sampling efforts, and we'll sample once every 2 years or 3 years instead, and this will free up time on our end to sample more lakes, as well as keep things efficient. And then one final thing I want to touch on before I pass it over to Finn is we are working on a data visualizer that will allow you to look at all of the data that we've collected on not just one lake, but on all the lakes in the program, and sort it by which parameters you'd like to see. And then this makes it just a very accessible, very easy tool for anyone to use. It'll be publicly available to view the data on their lake, compare it to other lakes, and see how everything stacks out. And with that, I will pass it over to Finn, and Finn's going to tell you a little bit about microplastics.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I'm Finn. As discussed, I'm a student from Trent University. I'm in my undergraduate right now, and I'll be covering microplastics in the Halliburton Lakes today. So just kind of starting off a little bit basic, just like microplastics in general, they're defined to be as a piece of plastic that is 5 millimeters or smaller, which is roughly the back end of an eraser for a pencil. The ones we've been dealing with this summer tend to be like smaller than eye level. There's a pretty big range. And where microplastics are found is, I feel like, very important context, because they've kind of been found basically everywhere. They're in every ecosystem on the planet, including like extremely remote areas like the Arctic and deserts and coral reefs. They're in drinking water, in the atmosphere, and of course in different parts of humans as well. So knowing this information, I feel, is necessary, because then we know it's not a question of if there's microplastics in the lakes, which is only understandable, but rather like how do we better understand the composition and their relationship. And I just want to point out that these microplastics on the screen are actually photos of ones we found on the lake and were able to put on the slide. So that's kind of what they look like visually speaking. Our lab has been working on this throughout the summer in collaboration with ULinks. It's been a really great collaboration because we have lab access and you are able to do all the on-field sampling and the organization, which is greatly appreciated. And yeah, so going into kind of our data pool, we're looking at about 22 different lakes sampled from 2024 to 2025, and total of about 82 samples. And there's about 2 sampling events per year. And just a quick look into our process of how we analyze this data is we begin with these jugs of water by going through a vacuum filtering system. And this leaves all the microplastics to be left in a little filter paper. And this filter paper is then analyzed through a microscope. We individually inspect and count every microplastic, which is a pretty lengthy process, including the filtering as well. And we have steps to like visually identify microplastics with a checklist, but we also confirm by using a hot needle and melting the particles, because it can be difficult to tell whether it's microplastics or other debris that would be in lake water. So kind of moving on into our data results, we have a table comparing sort of all of the average number of microplastics per liter for each lake. Now, as you can see, there's a pretty big range between different lakes. This is like very, very expected. There's a lot of different outside factors that would impact this, like some lakes are smaller or others have a lot more human activity nearby. And because microplastics are abundant in the environment and the atmosphere, it can be hard to determine their sources and consider those outside factors. One big thing we know is that because they're in the atmosphere, atmospheric deposition leads to a lot of cross-contamination. So even something as like a lake being slightly more south means that it's closer to an urban center like Toronto, which produces a lot of microplastics, and then will naturally have slightly higher levels. So yeah, this table is great for just getting a rough understanding of what the standard is. Yeah, no, right here we also have the average for all lakes combined. A way I really like looking at this, to break this down a bit further, is looking at the different shapes. So this chart breaks down the most common microplastic shapes for all the lakes combined. As you can see here, fibers are predominantly the shape we found, over 80%. And this is based on 6 pre-existing categories of microplastic shapes. This kind of makes sense with like other freshwater microplastic studies that have been done. If we consider like the structure of fibers, because naturally they're long and kind of thread-like. And because of this, they have a tendency to float in water for longer periods of time. And because we kind of focused on surface area water, it would make sense that it's more common. Well, versus like something like sediment or shoreline might have slightly different compositions. But also, we also know that fibers are very likely to be transferred through atmospheric deposition, as mentioned earlier. So it makes sense that that location is a very important role in levels. And knowing the fact that it's mainly fibers, we can look at the source of the shape. So we mainly know that textiles lead to fibers in the environment. So artificial fibers like clothes made of nylon, acrylic, polyester, like washing clothes can lead to pretty significant contribution to fibers, but also so does like everyday wear and tear. So the most productive way to minimize fibers is to minimize the use of synthetic fabrics overall, which is obviously a little difficult, but at least gives us a direction to go in. Yeah, so that was thank you for listening to that. I realize that was kind of a lot of information, so I'm happy to answer any questions when that's appropriate. But yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. So I'll hand it over to Jim Prince just to talk a little bit about some of the abandoned dock removal that's been going on Canisius Lake. This and the next 2 highlighted programs have been supported by Trent University's Community Impact Micro Grant opportunities. And so we've been able to partner with 3 cohorts to be able to execute some work there.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. In addition, the micro grants were kind of cool because each of the participants between 15 and 30 years old got a micro credential in project management. And it was the Canada Service Corps provided that money to Trent, who distributed it. So the folks involved got an actual micro credential from Trent, and then the funding to actually execute the project. So this project will be interesting to the Lake Association folks, and we call it "Who Let the Docks Out?" And it's an abandoned dock reduction program on the Canisius Lakes. We have an abandoned dock problem on our lake. People, when they move out of their cottage and they put their dock in a back bay, they might sell the cottage without the dock. And that dock, the old dock, which was probably unserviceable, stays in that back bay. They've left the lake, and the new owners then go buy another dock. So you can read the details here. We found this particular year, we've done this a couple times, but this time we did it in a very thorough way with GPS training and tracking. 26 abandoned docks were identified on the lakes. 12 of them were in particular areas where people store their docks. 14 were identified as having styrofoam flotation devices, and that's one of the primary reasons we're removing them, to reduce the amount of microplastics and contamination in the lakes. Through the grant, we've identified 7 docks as priority candidates, and we've just put an RFP out for a quote for removal of 5 of those docks, and we hope to do that by the end of the season. So in addition to that, we've got a communication program that the student who is developing the program has worked on, and we're going to institutionalize a zero dock abandonment initiative in the community. I think most of your lakes probably have some abandoned docks, and this is one way to try to get rid of them. The other aspect of this, we're looking at identifying each dock with name tags. It's probably the 911 number, so that in fact, if it gets away in the spring or it is abandoned, people can identify those docks.
Thank you very much, Jim. And we'll hand it over to Nick to walk us through the aquatic plant inventory.
That animation got accidentally added in when I was making the slideshow.
Oh,
certainly didn't. Seems to be causing some problems in terms of me being able to turn the slides. Yeah, so this summer we did an aquatic plant survey of some upper watershed lakes in Haliburton County. So those lakes were the Kinesis lakes, so Little Kinesis, Big Kinesis, Lipsey Growler, and then all the lakes within the Redstone agglomeration of lakes, lake associations. Yeah, so the purpose of the survey was just to do a straight inventory of the aquatic and shoreline vegetation in those lakes. Although I think the sort of the big where this evolved from was to locate any potential invasive plant species. ULinks had been pursuing some grants to do some other invasive plant work, and so this sort of evolved out of that. And then also to provide management recommendations based on those surveys to the lake associations that end up being our clients. So speaking of which, the funding mechanism that supported this project was, so there was some support from HCDC, Haliburton County Development Corporation, and Trent University to some extent. However, the vast majority of the funding, or a significant chunk of the funding, came from sort of fee for service model, where the lake associations who wanted a survey paid a certain fee relative to the time we expected the survey to be done. Yeah. So the way that we went about doing the survey, so initially we had thought that, or I had thought that a rake survey would be appropriate, but my experience was heavily shaped by my working in limestone-based lakes in the Southern Kawarthas, where you can throw a rake in and get plants out of the lake, and yeah, that's generally not the case in these northern lakes that are quite a bit rockier with much less organic substrate. And so we modified our methods and began using binoculars instead, because often the boats couldn't get close enough to the shore for us to look at them from a place that the boat owners were comfortable not crashing into the rocks. Yeah, so what we did was we get to the site and look at identify the plants that are there, and then rate their relative abundance on a scale of 1 to 3, with 3 being the most. So these are some examples of the results that we produced so far. So in the reports that we're providing to the lake associations, we provide a complete species list of the species that we found, their locations on the lake, and then their sort of relative abundance in a ranked order, and then these maps of species richness across the lake. So in terms of management considerations, some of the sort of early considerations that have come out of the results so far is that, one, drawdown is probably one of the most significant factors in terms of describing the aquatic plant communities within a lot of the lakes. However, I think the other major factor that explains a lot of the variation between lakes that we've seen is probably wake. So recent study in the Muskokas on lakes bigger than Kinesis found that up to 80% of wake in those lakes at least was being caused by boats relative to and only 20% of that was natural. I think there's probably more boat like fast moving boats in the Muskoka lakes compared to lakes around here. But I think when we did a survey comparing a survey we did of Lipsey Lake to one of Kinesis, there was significantly higher richness along the shoreline in Lipsey Lake, where they do not allow outboard motors, and all the watercraft in the lake are basically floating docks with electrical propulsion system. So although there is definitely a larger amount of wake that's occurring on Kinesis Lake, but in terms of management recommendations, I think it is worth considering that wake may be having a significant influence on the aquatic plant community in some lakes, although the extent to which it's having an effect is maybe not precisely certain at this time. In terms of invasive species that we found throughout our surveys, generally we weren't finding too many. We found purple loosestrife on one lake, some Phragmites on another, but in general, there haven't been too many invasive aquatic plant species on the shorelines or in the lakes that we've found so far. Phragmites does remain a concern. You can see it moving along the roadways within the county, and it is beginning to spread. So, certainly that is still a consideration in terms of possible invasive species management that lake associations might be doing. And then I think in terms of potential for restoration in the lakes, I think if there's any particularly ambitious cottagers associations out there that are interested in doing any restoration of the aquatic plant community, there is a local species at risk aquatic plant called Engelmann's quillwort. And there are pots of money that are associated with species at risk. And so, I think it could not be done by anyone like cottager association alone, nor without collaboration with a provincial agency. But it might be an interesting project to look into, because there are only two known populations of this species in Ontario, one of which is in West Guildford. End of what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Nick. So we'll hand it back over to Jack just to do a bit of coverage on the 2025 update of Phragmites surveying and removal.
So last year in 2024, we endeavored to map all the Phragmites patches in the upper watershed of Haliburton County. We found surprisingly few. A little bit of good news there. We found a lot less than we thought we were going to. Last year, we removed one of those patches just as a little test phase to see if it could be done, and it was fairly successful. We went in again this year and took another round of spades to it. And then this year, of the identified patches so far, we've removed 5, and then an additional one after that was identified to be the native reed canary grass, which is a bit of a commonly mistaken for Phragmites, but it is native. And then we're underway in removing the seed heads from the Pine Lake patch, which is just down the road from the West Guildford General Store, if you've ever been up that way. And then we're still removing frag as we're speaking today. So tomorrow morning, actually, I'm going to be going out with a group of volunteers up to West Shore Road by Kinesis Lake to remove hopefully 4 more patches tomorrow. And we'll continue scheduling to remove it, hopefully as many as we can before the snow flies. If you are at all interested in joining these efforts, I would be more than happy to have you. All you need really is a good pair of shoes and a shovel, and if you don't even have a shovel, then we'll give you a shovel. If you're interested in joining, send me an email at wq@ulinks.ca, and I'll let you know the next time we're planning on going out. And if you're available that day, then I'd love to have you. If you're interested at all in learning a bit more about how to identify frag or the removal techniques that we'll be using, we have those available on our website, ulinks.ca.
If I could jump in, Frank. this week, Andrew Gordon and I presented at Dysart Council a proposal for some funding to do this frag removal in the upper watershed. But also there's a really nasty one in Pine Lake right near West Guilford. And one of the councillors lives right beside the patch on Pine Lake. So he may have a little bit of leverage with that because he sees it when he goes to work every day. So this is one of the things that ULinks does, is we're trying to work closely with Haliburton County and the municipalities to try to make them aware of the work we're doing. So good report, Jack. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for an update on the several programs that are happening within the WU umbrella. And you know, we're always looking to offer support to Haliburton County where it makes the most sense through the program and the resources and relationships that it bolsters. So just dipping into financial sustainability, when we look at how this program, specifically the Testing the Waters program, is supported financially, again, about 50% of the costs are covered through our contract with Haliburton County. To support staffing initiatives, we also make use of external employment grants such as Canada Summer Jobs, Eco Canada, and Career Launcher, which really have been critical in allowing us to bring on students and seasonal staff. In addition to that, we do receive in-kind support from our partner organizations, and this comes in many forms, whether that's equipment, staff time, student research, volunteer contributions, all of these which reduce program delivery costs. And then Jack and I have alluded to this earlier in this presentation. Many of our Lake Association partners provide in-kind contributions such as boat use, fuel, and volunteer hours, all of which help offset the program costs related to sampling. Altogether, this is a mixed funding model, and what makes the program sustainable and keeps costs reasonable for everybody involved. Now, while we have strong core funding and in-kind contributions, there still are some program costs that ULinks has been absorbing directly. The biggest of these has been shipping and logistics. So on average, it costs us over $2,000 per year just to ship samples to the analysis lab. And as of current, that's been entirely absorbed by ULinks. Over the past 4 years, it's nearing about $10,000 in contributions. There's also other miscellaneous operating costs like supplies, calibration fluids, data management, fees to maintain our servers for the visualization tool that Jack covered, and these aren't eligible costs by our grants. And so to make this program more sustainable, starting in fall 2025, we'll be including a 12% per invoice to cover shipping costs. And so what that means in practice is that the cost of one site will move from $106 to $119. And that brings us to cost recovery neutrality while keeping things affordable for participating lake associations. We are working to find other innovative solutions to reduce shipping costs overall. Like I have folks that live in Guelph. Whenever I'm going down on a weekend to visit, I'm also going to be making a trip or am making a trip to Waterloo to drop off, and that eliminates us needing to, ship it through a shipment partner. But it's been fairly difficult, especially when we try to ensure that all numerous lake samples are going in one shipment. We're constrained by that quality assurance expectation of the analysis lab that we're sending it to them to be analyzed within 7 days of it being pulled from a lake. We are eager to help embrace other opportunities for lake associations to provide additional funding in addition to just membership dues to help pay for these programs. We're excited to get involved and support any fundraising events, any sponsorships or donation campaigns. Similar to like the Adopt a Highway approach, I think it would be excellent to possibly look into Adopt a Site model because lake associations may not have vast bank accounts and large revenue because they have their primary funding model comes from membership dues. But there are certainly members of lakes that may have greater capacities than just the organization individually. And so if there's any opportunities for ULinks to help support these initiatives, we are more than willing to do so. So before we get into questions and answers, just looking ahead, we're really excited about how the WU program can continue to grow and to adapt to serve your associations even better. Some of the areas that we're focusing on looking forward include shoreline restoration initiatives where we can work to revitalize natural buffers and protect lake health and wetland health. We're also looking at getting involved in future expansions of both the benthic biomonitoring program and the testing the waters program as we start to cycle lake associations in and out through their baseline data acquisition milestones. Another important area is the aquatic plant inventories. So as Nick mentioned, this is helping us track invasive and native species, and we're eager to get other lake associations involved in subsequent years. Also looking to expand our abandoned dock removal work, which has already proven to be a very tangible way to improve lake environments when it comes to microplastics. All of these, our primary initiative in terms of funding them come from special grants, whether that's Green Municipalities Fund, the Great Lake Local Action Fund, Invasive Species Center. We spend numerous hours in writing grant applications. We're very happy when we're successful, and we try not to take it too personally when we're not, and we just try to learn from the process and see how we can improve and be able to, maximize eligibility and community impact all in one. At the heart of all this is one simple question: how do you think that we can apply WU to best support your association? And that's sort of the conversation that we want to continue with moving forward. Happy to field any questions or comments or whatnot that come out of this meeting, but the main thing that we're looking forward is how can we best serve you? So Jack will monitor the chat for any questions. It would be great if we could use the raise hand function on Zoom just to keep everything organized. And yeah, whatever inquiries you have, happy to hear them.
So did you want us to raise our hand or did you want us to put it in chat? Sorry, I heard both ways.
Either or. I mean, if you don't have a microphone, you can throw it in chat. If you have a microphone, it would be great to hear you. If you want to go first, Jeff.
Sure, I don't mind asking a couple of questions. Finn, I think you were talking about the microplastic program, and given that it's everywhere, how important is it that you have a good density of lakes that you're looking at? I noticed that you've got Bosch, which maybe is Little Bosch. I'm not sure which one you came to. Is there an importance to maybe wanting more lakes in that, or do we volunteer for that, or how does that work with your project?
The more lakes that we're able to sample, the more accurate of an idea of the spread of microplastics we're able to get. And that's really helpful, and also helping us understand, like if we know one lake is closer to say an urban center versus another lake has just like higher human activity, we can look at these factors and better understand how these factors will affect concentration, versus if we only have like a handful of lakes, then we'd be very limited in trying to understand that.
Okay, so if you're looking for lakes and we wanted to volunteer, do we reach out to you, or how do we do that?
That would be great. I think we better reach out to Frank. But yeah.
Yeah, so just to add on to that, the lakes that have been participating in the microplastic project have direct crossover with the lakes that are participating in the testing the waters. When we're collecting sample for physical and chemical data, we're also doing a dip for microplastics. And because it just makes the most sense, we're already at the ideal locations to collect these samples. And it would be like that's where we're finding the greatest opportunity. The one thing to note is our program for testing the waters last spring expanded in terms of lake association engagement by 150%. The analysis lab at Trent University did not experience that same expansion because they're mutually exclusive entities of each other. We are looking for ways to be able to bring more resources to that program. In fact, ULinks has recently signed an MOU with Trent's Office of Research and Innovation, and that is a core project that we're looking to leverage to actually execute that opportunity.
Okay, Frank. So I can reach out and let you know. Bosch I should have it written here. Jeff Woods.
I think you froze there, Jeff. But...
microplastics, and also interested in the benthic program. How do we get included or reach out to give our interest in what's involved in that?
Yeah, just send me an email and we'll get in touch about some logistical planning. There's a modest wait list at this time because we're just looking to cycle out some lake associations before we induct new ones. We don't want to make commitments beyond our means. I'd rather under promise and over deliver than vice versa. And yeah, but it's propelled by the community-based research aspect with university students. So it has more bandwidth than the programs that rely on staff exclusively. So yeah, just send me an email and we'll get in touch about that program.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Frank.
Of course.
All right, and we got a question in the chat from Patty. She's asking what the name of the species at risk that Nick mentioned was.
The Engelmann's quillwort. Yeah, the hard thing about quillworts is that they are very difficult to identify because you can only get a strong positive confirmation of their identification by looking at their spores through a microscope. So there may also be more populations that we don't know about because they're so hard to identify, but maybe not.
And then another question in the chat from Rob Norris is, what are the best practices for Phragmites disposal? And I can take that one. So right now, our best practices include so you take the frag out of the ground and you attempt to take as much of that rhizome as possible. And right now, what we're doing is we're severing the rhizome from the rest of the plant. And then we're solarizing that rhizome, which is to say that we're going to store it in a black plastic bag in the sun, and it's gonna dry out and it's gonna die in there. And then we're gonna burn it whenever there is not a fire ban. And then as for the seed heads, it's a similar process. We want to solarize them and then burn them. And then as for the frag itself, for the actual plant, once we've removed all that reproductive material, the seed heads and the rhizomes, we found that it actually does not have much left to give after that. So we found that disposing of the actual Phragmites plant in a shaded, dry area will cause it to just decompose naturally and not allow it to reestablish.
Okay. Yeah, we've been managing or attacking a frag, colony, whatever you call the thing, a frag site on drag. And this is our 4th year. And the first year we had a really big black bag of seed heads, fewer than next year. And this year, a very few number of seed heads, were produced. So we're making headway. But we're leaving the rhizome. Should we actually attack the rhizomes as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes your removal efforts far more efficient when you can take the rhizomes or as much of the rhizome as possible. The rhizome effectively acts as an energy storage device for the frag. Now, frag's pretty resilient. It's going to keep coming back year after year as best it can. But the more of that rhizome you remove, the less energy it has to do so year after year. And so you may find that your 5-year removal efforts turn into a 2 or 3-year removal effort with more effective removal of the rhizome.
Okay. The other thing we found is that we put the seed heads in a bunch of black garbage bags, put them out in the sun, and chipmunks get inside and spread them around. So we're looking for a more robust storage or containing mechanism.
Yeah, that's tricky. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
So sorry, I was just going to say, when we get the seed heads, we lay them out in a place they don't spread, and we put them in our wood burning stoves right away.
Okay.
So black bag and trying to put them in the bags is a good idea. It will work, but if critters are getting into them, burn them.
Yep,
that'll do it. You can't really burn the rhizomes that easy.
Yeah, but it's the seed heads that we want to stop being blown around, right?
Yeah. When we had we actually inducted the support from Professor Lynn Short from Humber College to train our staff to then effectively train community partners. And what she was saying is that about 10% of reproduction comes from seed dispersal, and then majority of it is actually coming from rhizome expansion. So,
Okay.
the hot topic to really target would be rhizome removal. That's going to be the largest vector for spreads, but 10% of a lot is still a lot. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, we'll add that to our method, our methods. Like we have seen a reduction in the number of shoots and seed heads as we take the sprouts out, in September and in August rather, and there's fewer coming up the next year. But we can attack the rhizomes as well.
There's a really good video on the Ulinks Woo website that we made with Lynn Short, and it describes all of that.
Great.
So it's
Okay.
quite good.
Good.
I just threw the link in the chat there for that.
Yep.
Okay, so next in the chat we have a follow-up comment from Patty Abrams on the microplastics. She says that there is a microplastics filter for washing machines available, and she's provided a link to go have a look at that if you're interested. And then our next question, Steve Dice has two questions. He's got one regarding microplastics in aquatic species, specifically fish. He's wondering if there's any plans to test fish in the future, as he understands they accumulate microplastics, which could affect edibility.
Yeah, so what I can jump in and maybe Finn, if you have anything else to add to it. We are aware of a lab at University of Guelph where we actually have some rock bass preserved from various rock bass derbies of 2024 that we're hoping to be able to create a partnership where microplastic contents can sort of be analyzed at Guelph. Still some relationship building and logistical things to figure out, but it is a lead nonetheless. Yeah, definitely with bioaccumulation, I understand the concerns of fish and using them as a food source, but not wanting to purposely ingest microplastics. What I can say is there are endeavors in mind, but concrete plans are still being ironed out.
Fair enough. I imagine it's quite expensive. I've seen a few studies down in the States, but yeah, I can imagine it's very expensive to get into. And it's just a matter of, as an end user of fish from time to time, and many people are, knowing what you're eating.
Yeah, so and then Steve, you had another question in the chat. Do you care to restate that verbally, or would you
Sure.
like me to do that?
No, I can do that. So I'm with the Musquaby Area Community Association representing 4 lakes. We're not the first to do this, but we're trying an initiative to get the lead out of people's fishing tackle, specifically lead sinkers, although 90% of jig heads are lead. And we're going to do an exchange. We had a little draw, 50-50 draw, raise some money. There are certainly alternative or examples where associations have done this. I guess my frustration with the lack of community A, awareness, and B, wanting to get involved in this, especially at local tackle shops and stores that sell fishing tackle, such as Canadian Tire, etc. Very little interest when you go into a store. If you fish, you go into a store and it's 90% lead tackle, and it is fairly cheap because it is lead. And then you look for the non-lead alternatives, which include titanium and aluminum, tin, I should say, also some steel for the larger worm weights. And your selection A is very small. It might be half a dozen spots on the wall. And B, it's about 3 to 5 times the cost of lead. So of course, what's the, where's the incentive to get rid of your lead or to buy only tin in the future? I'm just wondering if there's any broader interest through Ulinks and campaigns in sort of more social awareness, but also, I guess, more awareness of environmental impact of lead, where I'm aware that there were 2 loons in Haliburton County in the last year that died. And the evidence was that it was from ingesting a single piece of lead tackle, because it goes into their gizzard, they grind it up, and lead is extremely poisonous to these birds. So just wondering if there's been any thought about an initiative in that area.
Yeah, so uh, here I'll start off, Jim, and then if you want to segue in. One thing I can share is last year we did a community-based research report through Trent's community-based natural resource management course in partnership with the Halls and Hawks Lake Property Owners Association to identify the feasibility of a lead weight exchange program suitable for Haliburton County. So we've done a bit of thought on it. That report is available on our research database at ULINK's website. But we've also started some education campaigns where we're also trying to do lead exchange programs with, let's say, we're visiting a lake association's AGM or other events, rock fast derbies, etc. Primarily right now, because it's difficult in finding grant funding to support it. We are running education campaigns, but it really would be excellent to see, larger scale collaboration, and, being able to find ways to make it feasible for retailers to actually stock it. I do see in the chat here a statement from Dale that they've been told by retailers they're so expensive that they can't find suppliers. So indeed, incentives are needed. And Jim, if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, Steve, absolutely excellent point. So we did, and Redstone did a Get the Lead Out program based on the Wolf Lake communication materials. They've got great stuff.
Right.
And
I've
we've
looked at
had
that, yeah.
virtually zero uptake. And to be honest with you, it is people just can't get past opening up their old tackle box, sorting out the old lead tackle, getting rid of it. And you're right, the access to it's not that great. I must say, last year when we did our Rock Bass Derby and Ulinks helped us with the promotion, we went to Canadian Tire. They donated a whole pile of lead-free tackle for us to distribute. So that was good on Canadian Tire. We also reached out to a couple of non-lead tackle makers in Ontario, and we purchased some to do an exchange. But again, the uptake wasn't that great. So I think your suggestion, power in numbers, is really, really a good one. And I think that probably Ulinks might be the place to start that. It might not be the place to finish it. Last year we reached out to OFAH for a $10,000 grant to run multiple rock bass derbies with the objective of promoting lead-free tackle. They don't like the idea of us promoting lead-free tackle, although they gave us $1,000. So because there are folks that fish and hunt like the cheap lead. So it's a little bit of a conflict with OFAH and the use of lead in both hunting and fishing. I think opportunity.
Yeah, just a follow-up comment. I've followed on some of those programs that have been done. The Canadian Tire, when I approached them, wasn't interested in doing anything at that point, and nor was the Home Hardware in Minden, because again, they don't carry much that isn't lead. The fact is that in national parks in Canada, lead tackle has been banned since 1997, I believe it was. Where I experienced my first lead exchange program up in Puckasaw National Park when we were there, and you weren't even allowed to have it in your tackle box. If someone opened up your tackle who was with the parks, they'd say, you got to take your tackle box back to your car and lock it up. So they did an exchange program. Many of the northern states have banned or in the process of banning, but it's so amazing to go on the big national or multinational, I guess, because they sell in Canada, Bass Pro and Cabela's and a number of others. And again, it's 90% lead. And I was astounded in doing some of the research for this at some of the Canadian government, the MOE site, talking about 400 tons of fishing tackle a year is abandoned in Canadian waters. 400 tons. It's equivalent of about 30,000 car batteries a year is lost into the lakes. And it's a number that just astounds me. And yet the alternatives, I said to someone, and was suggested I probably shouldn't do this, but you like your red wine, buying 2 packages of tin weights and half a dozen jig heads that are tin is about the equivalent of 1 nice bottle of red wine. So, I trying to put some sort of context into it, because we all know that tackle boxes, my own included, had lots of old little lead shot we used to close with our teeth when we were kids. So,
We did.
we didn't know better. Anyway, I think some more larger, initiative and focusing on the aquatic birds, especially loons, because everybody loves their loons, and getting more support for that program might be there's power in numbers, maybe.
Yeah.
Redstone this year did a really nice signage program about get the lead out. So I think there are enough numbers in Halliburton County for us maybe to take a shot at this in ULinks and some leadership.
Okay. Jimmy mentioned signage. What signage is that?
Actually, it's signage that I provided to Redstone, and they crafted a little different and had it made locally. So
okay.
Yeah, I could put you in touch with. I'll get a copy of the signs that were made from Jess Kidd. If you can put an action on me, Frank, to do that, and we'll send it off to you guys. It's essentially the logos and the information from the folks at Wolf Lake. But quite attractive and good messaging.
Well, that's great. Yeah, we're putting up clean, drain, dry signs at every access point, but we could put a lead sign is there as well. What about all the lake stewards getting together in the county and sort of strengthen numbers and setting a committee to address it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Is that a question, Rob?
That's a question. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things about that. One is that Paul McGinnis does that.
Okay.
With the CHA.
Okay.
And there's perhaps 2 ways to tackle that. One is to talk to Paul to make sure that Paul's agendas include just the stuff we're talking about today. And the CHA does absolutely fabulous work, but they stick to their knitting.
Yeah.
And those of us in lake associations have a whole bunch of other knitting we do. And perhaps we'd like the CHA to tackle that, but they really don't have the bandwidth. So perhaps those of us on the call might have a think about how we do that. Maybe we have a separate meeting with Paul's involvement to tackle all those other issues like the ones we're talking about now.
Makes sense.
So it is something that definitely needs to be done. And it isn't, the issues aren't always just about what we're talking about today, environmental aspects of the lake. There are all kinds of other things around lake association participation, membership, and those things, which the CHA really doesn't deal with.
Okay, sure. But back to the lead, I mean, part of it would be education to all the cottage owners. That's one place to attack it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that can come through our annual meetings, etc. So if there was information that was consistent that went out, for example, we could add it to if there was something around, I mean, we probably all have our meetings about the same time. If there was something around exchange programs where we could prep that ahead of time, let people know and put that message out there, because I'm sure 90% of them don't even think that there's a problem.
Yeah.
So I would say like the annual cottage association meetings would be a great place for us if we had a good simple placeholder to put that in there.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, somebody mentioned that in our AGM this year, so it's at least on our radar.
Just a follow up to that, and I guess I don't think we're any different than most of the other associations when it comes to discussing things like boating etiquette and wakes and naturalizing shoreline. You're preaching to the converted who come to the AGM.
Right.
So it's getting the message out to others and at the boat launch and signage there to try and change that messaging to make sure that people get it. But it really does start with a lot of the local distributors. And I've gone online, I've exchanged emails with some of the manufacturers, and it's just, I mean, lead is lead. Lead is cheap. So anyway,
but could all the lake stewards sign a letter if we all signed it, again, strengthen numbers?
something like that might be a solution. But let me suggest a perhaps. Perhaps ULinks then has a community-based research project which put some students in charge of doing the research to say, what are the barriers to actually implementing this? And they would do some interviews with people around the table here, interviews with the local community, and interviews with the vendors, and then come up with a report that would say, what should we do next?
Makes sense.
That's what ULinks is good at.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I add just a couple of things? The 4 students who worked on the Hawks and the Halls Lake report last year, I supervised them. And that was one of the problems with a short project like that, a 3-month project. You really can't get the permissions and set it up to do those sorts of interviews. So that would be a next step that could jump from that project. Also, I think that the lead problem, and it should be addressed not just in terms of the lead shot. So a lot of the good research on the effects of lead on birds comes from lead shot. And you go to places like Marsh where they've done some research on this, and that's the convincing stuff. There's not a lot of good research on lead from fishing tackle and its contribution, and there's a lot of good research on lead pipes and effects on water as well. So maybe the issue is better addressed in a broader scale. Talk about a number of different lead sources and those that can be addressed in lakes. This is one of them, and put together some sort of an education package that allows the broader issue to be addressed.
Yeah, and just one really last question or comment about the lead. I think, Jim, you mentioned about Ontario Fishing and Angling Group. Lead is actually banned in hunting waterfowl in Ontario and has been for some time. So it's not impossible, except for I think one species of bird, the woodcock or something. But generally speaking, shotgun shells cannot contain lead anymore across Canada for migratory birds, for those who hunt. So it's possible to do stuff. It just needs a lot more pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. Thank you.
Okay. Next in the chat, we have a word of caution from Dale Leadbeater saying that they stockpiled frag stems and they did sprout, warning us to monitor the piles. That's great. I appreciate you speaking up with that, Dale. I will certainly be keeping an eye on those and making sure that they're not taking root again. She also comments that in Harcourt Park, their occurrences are low and shrinking with annual control measures, and they're actually able to burn all of the biomass that they remove, which is really great. I like that comment because it shows sort of the nature of frag removal, which is that if you keep at it year after year, you do have an impact, and you can, reduce its abundance with sustained effort.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Dale. And next, let's see. I've got a question from Harvey Corman, asking what are the main things cottagers can do or at least be aware of to reduce the effects of pollution and other environmental stressors on aquatic ecosystems?
Okay, well, I can jump in here on that one. Through a internship opportunity with some University of Guelph students, ULinks is working with Gull Lake Cottagers Association to identify a comprehensive list of basically products that would go down the drain and be introduced into a septic system. And what the goal is to be able to develop a cheat sheet for Haliburton County cottagers to know what the impacts of specific products would be, whether good or bad, things to avoid, and taking the ingredients, they will be partnering with the CHA to develop cheat sheets that sort of identify things on a brand level of products that would be more preferable to have a minimal aquatic impact. So we'll have something in response to that by the end of this year as that project culminates. And then there was just one previous to that, Anton asking, does the province still have grant programs to remove Phragmites? So they do have the Invasive Phragmite Control Fund. Last I checked, it's around $13 million that has been allocated in initiatives. ULinks was successful on a a grant application for that in 2024. We unfortunately were not successful on it this year. We are following up to learn as to what aspects they were looking for, so that in a subsequent application we can make improvements and be able to bring some of that resource to Haliburton County. So in short, yes, there is a grant program. And I'm happy to talk offline about ways that Moore Lake could get involved in future projects related to that.
And then next in the chat, we've got a couple of comments from Paul empathizing with the difficulty in removing lead. And then one as well, just they got the at Horseshoe also got the get the lead out signage at their boat launch. They also used the Wolf Lake material. Yeah, and that's all that there is in the chat so far.
Okay, yeah. So just one final call out. Was there anything else anyone wanted to contribute towards this evening's meeting?
Just a couple of projects which are less environmental but Lake Association related that ULinks is kicking off this fall. And we'll keep folks in the loop as we go. I think some of the people on the call here are involved in steering committees for it. One of the projects is a Haliburton-wide Lake Association survey looking at metrics of lake associations. So, for example, how many properties on your lakes, how many members, what your fees are, how much your insurance is. Do you have a road association? How does that impact? Do you comment on variance applications? Things that FOCA doesn't survey, the CHA doesn't survey, but every week, those of us on lake associations get questions about how other lake associations are handling things. So the process will be that we have 4 Guelph students doing this project. No, sorry, we have a Trent student and some business students hopefully doing it. And one of the things we'll be doing is reaching out to lake associations and asking them what questions they'd like to ask, and then implement the survey. The survey would be completed by several of your executive, perhaps, on the lake associations, so that we got good data, and then there'd be some analysis done there. Frank talked about, did you talk about the blue-green algae?
No, and that's actually good that you brought that up.
Yeah.
So yeah, through that same Guelph intern opportunity, ULinks in the WWEW program will be hosting a project looking at developing a hazardous algal bloom reporting framework for Haliburton County. There are certainly some limitations. One, especially like, let's say we found blue-green algae tomorrow on one of your lakes. If you called into the MECP to report it, very unlikely that they're going to send somebody to investigate until after Labor Day on Tuesday. And that offers an opportunity for the bloom to dissipate, and then the detection becomes less effective. So we're looking at finding ways that we can improve that resource and, be able to work in tandem with these other agencies that are most responsible for responding on a more localized level. And so that will be another project that culminates as of the end of this year, and hopefully that will bring some, actionable improvements to what we currently have.
The other project, which may be relevant to some of you, some of the lake associations, is we do fireworks each year. A number of us cringe because we do fireworks. But we've polled the association members. They feel that from a heritage perspective and enjoyment perspective, it's more important to do fireworks than to do other things. So we have a project that's looking at fireworks alternatives, what the cost is, what the fun factor is. And we have a couple of Lake Association panelists that are helping us out on a steering committee for that as well.
Yeah. And then I do see a hand up from Dale.
Yes, I don't know if you've caught up with Watersheds Canada has just released a new window in their website about cyanobacteria, and they've got a survey in there, and they're trying to raise awareness. And when it comes to that, I'm using whatever resources I can put my hands on to try and educate, because getting the news out to the members is my single most difficult thing that I'm focusing on. And one of the things with respect to the microplastics, and thank you very much, Finn, for your work. And I'm not suggesting that you do this, but again, in terms of communications, I see more and more plastic toys, those big floating aqua lily thingies that actually take the skin off the kids. I wonder whether or not that's something that we need to be thinking about communicating and reaching back into the industry to tell them that they need to be responsible.
Yeah, Dale, thanks for the comment on Watersheds Canada. I was on a call with Robert Pye, who's the CEO or director today, and one of their employees. They are going to be engaged in our hazardous algal bloom project as participants.
Yay. Well done.
I see a hand up from Bob.
Yeah, I was at AMO conference last week, and I had a long conversation with Dr. Piggott, who is the chief medical officer for the new health unit, which includes Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Pine Ridge, and Peterborough, and was talking to him about blue-green algae from the perspective of the reporting of blue-green algae blooms and what role does the health unit have in it. But hearing that, we have this project, I think it would be wise to try to reach out to the health unit to see if they would participate in this project with us. Everybody's got a different role in all this, and they may be a side player, but they may also have some interesting insights that we could use to I don't know, just basically talk about blue-green algae and get it more widely understood, because so many people think that it's not in their lakes at all times, and the whole difference between the blue-green algae and the blooms.
I can just add to that. Thomas Piggott's my neighbor. He lives 2 doors down. And they were doing monitoring here in Peterborough and Little Lake on blue-green algae. And they ended up, that was last year, they ended up closing the beaches most of the summer because they have a method of assessing it, in my opinion, not his, my opinion, that isn't very good. It's not accurate. It's sort of, and I watched them doing it, and it just doesn't, I wasn't seeing blue-green at all. So it might be worthwhile talking to him about something collaborative, where we could work with him to try and develop a better way of determining when the red flag should go up. Because I think their method here, from what I can see, isn't defensible.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, to have a collaborative, work with them collaboratively.
Yeah, the method in our madness here is to get some baseline data. No one has data. To get some baseline exemplars of who else is monitoring blue-green algal blooms, and to actually then, and we could do it, Bob, you're absolutely right. We could engage them now and explain it in that context, and to eventually get to them, because the rest of Ontario, the health unit are the folks that actually alert people about blue-green algal blooms. Our health unit does not. Muskoka has an exemplar program for doing that. Most of the rest of Ontario does. So we will take your advice, and we will contact that gentleman, because he's the new guy, and I think the previous folks were reluctant to maybe engage.
Yeah, he's a new guy, and he's got a lot of experience, and he's a young guy, and he's smart.
Best ever.
I thank you very much, everybody. I see another hand up here from Anton.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. I think, Jack, you mentioned that some of the lake associations have their own equipment for water quality sampling. I've just been allocated $2,000-3,000 to buy some equipment. What would you recommend we do as starters in that area?
Yeah, I'd be happy to send you a list of the equipment we've been using to a great success. I can follow up with you after this meeting and I can send you that list if that would be helpful, or yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What will $2,000 or $3,000 buy? I would imagine it's not everything.
It'll get a good portion of it. It'll get you just about, Frank.
It depends on what you purchase, because the YSI that we have and the length of the probe cable, that would almost eat up the full 3,000.
Yeah, but I think you could pretty well get everything else except for that for $3,000.
Yeah, and one of the things, part of the participation in the Testing the Waters program is we're still in the process of manufacturing some of it, but you're provided with test strips, a Secchi disc, a column sampler, a grab stick. So those are equipment that you can expect to receive at no cost for being participants of this program. And it's sort of just been a bandwidth issue on our end in manufacturing it, but it is something that we will either be lending out for the ones that we have made, or once we get them manufactured, giving them out to participants.
Okay, so I'll talk to you guys later then. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so if this
Can I put my hand up?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. I was looking in the list. Tom, sorry.
I want to ask the Lake Association people, and maybe it's a topic of general discussion. So Frank, at the beginning you mentioned that there's a watershed council in over Muskoka, and that there are conservation authorities throughout most of southern Ontario, and they do water quality monitoring. And you know, we haven't gotten that far in Halliburton, but one of the things that you notice of their water quality monitoring programs is that they're, including the one in Kawartha Conservation, is they do most of their monitoring in rivers, not in lakes. And there's some good reasons for that. One is they've got a lot more rivers than they do lakes. But another one is that they're dealing with the source of some of the pollutants that get into lakes by monitoring rivers. We're not monitoring rivers. And so I just wonder what the appetite is amongst lake associations to find out what's coming in to their lake via the streams and rivers that flow into them. Has there been any interest in that? Because I think it's an important question. Just to give an example of the plastic issue. I saw a really interesting report last year from Muskoka, where they were looking at the plastic fibers in the, not fibers, but plastic in the lakes, microplastics in the lakes, and they not in all of them, but some lakes, it wasn't dominated by fibers; it was dominated by fragments, and a lot of it was from tires, from car tires. You know, so you're finding a source that isn't airborne, that is waterborne, and that relates to where the roads are and what sorts of lack of protection there is to keep that stuff flowing in from the road. So I just wonder whether focusing on the watershed will help us solve some problems. Certainly not everyone, but and whether we should be extending our monitoring program to rivers and streams, and not just focusing on the lakes. So that's a question, you know, for all of you, I guess.
So I could jump in. We do have one lake area which has been monitoring their inputs for a number of years, and that's Cushok. And they've been doing that through Fleming, which unfortunately is going to fold because Fleming's not going to be doing that work anymore. So one opportunity is to go back and look at with Rita Moore, the work that they've done and the difference between the mid-lake sampling and the input sampling that they've done over the past good number of years, actually. So that's an opportunity to see whether it would be relevant to start to include rivers. The only other comment is, and Tom, this is ultimately practical. We're able to engage with citizen scientists and folks because they're lake associations and they're mostly lake centric. Although some of the folks today said their members are on rivers, there really aren't a lot of organizations that we could engage with that are on the rivers. So that's just a slight difficulty, not impossible.
There's also an easy side of this. You don't need to get out in a boat to sample a river.
Exactly.
So it might be easier to mount a program like that. But anyways, Dale, were you commenting on this?
Yeah, certainly. I guess Harcourt Park is in a unique situation because we own our backcountry. But I became concerned because there was a lot of road work going on and no regard was being given to the function of those streams that were going through the culverts that were being replaced. And there was a link back to cold water fishery because we have some unique populations. And so that was why we approached, well, first we hired a contractor to do an air photo interpretation of where the creeks were so that we could understand that. And when I started out, I was thinking we had 28. Well, by the time he was finished, there were over 100. And then the next year, we realized that ULinks could also help us. And so then we approached them about this potential to use GIS. And then it expanded into machine learning to do a better job of predicting where these critical tributaries were. So we had a wonderful group who worked on it. They did a site visit with me to confirm what the machine was telling them. And so they developed one layer. We're hoping that it's going to get a phase 2 to improve the precision. So between the hands-on human interpreted layer and now our machine interpreted layer, they complement each other very, very well because one does one thing, one does another thing. And so it's helped us to understand what level of effort we have to put into culvert replacements, what kinds of concerns that we have, if something goes wrong, what the source of that might be up in the watershed. It's in its infancy, but it's proved to be a really powerful tool. And I've only had it now for 2 years and it's really good. So I think your comments are really, really important, but most lake associations, as Jim says, don't really have the backlands to do that. And it would be good if that could somehow be accomplished, but you're going to need partnerships.
Just quickly to add another thought on that. In our particular case, we are the headwater of the Burnt River. So what we have flowing into our lake system, Musquaby and then Long, is principally from swamps, not from a river that you could wade into. I did this years ago in biology and the river studies, doing caddisfly studies in biology way back. And it was great because, yes, you could just walk in off the edge of the bank and do the river and do the testing. But to actually then deal with a place that's a headwater where Frank, I could take you back about 3 years ago. I wish I'd taken a picture, but it was for your benefit. I didn't. When the swamp was very low and Frank was up to his, well, more than his knees in mud, looking at me and how did I get out here and how do I get out? I let him lead on that one. So it is possible for those that are midstream lakes that you could do that, but you also have the lakes up river of those rivers to test and sample. Swamps, I don't know how you would begin to sample the swamps that we have. So it varies, I think, by the situation of the lake.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Some thought to be put into that for sure. Just circling back, Dale, If you're interested in doing a secondary phase of the Critical Tributaries project with software engineering students again this year, I'm aiming to get proposals to the professor. They gave me a soft deadline of tomorrow, but I'm sure we could sneak one more in early next week. Maybe you and I can connect offline and update a proposal to get that submitted.
Well, that's alarming because I've submitted it. So I hope it may have gone astray.
Okay, well, I might not be up to date on my records then. I'll double check, but that'll be something that we
more
can
than
get
happy to resubmit.
in. Okay. Yep. Were there any other questions this evening? Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your time today. If this meeting got you out of somewhere early, rejoice. You can get out of this meeting a little early as well. And if there's any follow-ups that you think of between 5 minutes after this meeting and sometime next week, just shoot one of us an email and we'll get back to you. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and have yourself a great evening.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you. Thank you.